The Godfather trilogy is one of the most critically acclaimed franchises, packed with a star-studded cast, insurmountable amounts of accolades, and for at least 2 out of the 3 films have won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. My Godfather 1 review still stands as my most watched video, and because of that, I thought it was only fitting that I review Godfather 2 and compare it to its predecessor. Well, that and, Al Pacino. So, let's get into it. Godfather 1 ends its third act with Michael succeeding as the new Don and violently ending all bad business ties with the 5 families. Tom is no longer consigliere.
Why am I out?
We've lost my favorite character, Sonny, and we're left with a foreshadowed Kay being excluded from the family business. You can watch my previous Godfather review to know more in depth my opinions on the first film, but overall I loved it, so I was extremely disappointed when I ended up not loving Godfather 2. Not even Robert De Niro could save this for me, but hold on, let me explain myself. Godfather 2 starts with an early flashback of a young Vito Corleone, the Godfather we meet in the first film, played by Marlon Brando, then picks up where the first film left off, with now Don Michael in charge. It then flashes back to an older yet younger Vito, depicting how he became a Don in the late 1910s throughout the film, and then at the end flashes back in the middle of these 2 time jumps to a time even before the first film when Michael decides to enlist in the army. And yeah, now the first film was told in chronological order, and one of the things I liked about it was the way they were able to convincingly pass time with the papers. Not that I wasn't able to follow the time jumps in Godfather 2, they just felt like very contrasting and semi-unrelated stories that just shouldn't have been intercut together. In Godfather 1, the story was straight up just about the succession of Don Michael, whereas in Godfather 2, the story jumps between Michael's reign as Don and Vito's origin of becoming Don, and I have yet to find any correlation. But the main reason overall why I had a hard time following, at least on first watch, was because of the insurmountable amount of new characters they had. Not just in Vito's story, which is understandable, but in Michael's, with his new bodyguards and business partners and enemies and chichis and risottos and her.
You couldn't bet your mom.
Like, to me, it felt like character overload. And with that, I didn't really get to care or want to care for any of the new characters, who, by the way, basically all died anyway. It all just felt like a completely new story at that point, well, 2, and maybe that's why I didn't feel so connected. I also felt like there was a lack in the variation of character personalities. I loved Sonny because he was known for having a temper, and Luca Brasi was so memorable because of his unintentional wit, practicing his speech at the beginning of Godfather 1.
I am honored and grateful.
To me, everyone acted the same in Godfather 2, mainly calm and collected when dealing with business. Of course, minusing Signor Roberto, the landlord in Vito's story, who barely had 5% of screen time anyway. Now, I don't mean to bash Godfather 2. I thought it was an interesting continuation of the first story, and while at times I wished it just chose to focus on either Michael's story or Vito's and not both, I thought it was still an okay movie. Plus, Al Pacino. No, but seriously, there were some great moments throughout the film, like when Kay asks Tom if she's a prisoner when she isn't allowed to leave the house, while simultaneously in the composition, she's framed behind bars. And the allegory of poor versus rich, like here in Florida with the rebels and violence on the ground, versus the immediate jump cut to the wealthy businessmen on a roof way above the chaos. I just think, with all things considered, I would still rank Godfather 1 as the better film, but let's compare. The writing. Now, we already know my problem with the writing in Godfather 2. The time jumps from 1901 to 1958 to 1917 to the family reunion at the end, and in general, that pacing felt really messy to me. I loved the pacing in Godfather 1. I loved that it was set during the holidays, which aided in its production design, and I also loved the way they integrated a B-story set in Sicily.
I'm an American hiding in Sicily.
Conflicts in business. In Godfather 2, the business was about monopolizing the gambling scene, whereas in Godfather 1, while they were also in gambling, the conflict was more largely about staying out of the narcotics business. I personally preferred the conflict in Godfather 1, but this also goes hand in hand with the antagonists. Hyman Roth and the Rosado brothers in Godfather 2 held absolutely no weight to Sollozzo and the Tattaglia family in Godfather 1. I just thought the chemistry was better between these rivals in the first film versus this weird, almost forced mentorship in the second between Michael and Hyman. No hate to Lee Strasberg, the actor who portrays Hyman. I just felt like I was made to distrust him right away, knowing that he put business over everything, as Johnny Ola says.
Hyman Roth always makes money for his partners.
We can also compare supporting antagonists like Signore Roberto in Godfather 2 versus Jack Woltz, the movie producer in Godfather 1. They both get a little off the hinges at whoever was calling shots, and personally, I liked them equally. I don't really know who to compare Don Fanucci in Godfather 2 with, but if it were against Captain Mark McCluskey in Godfather 1, two characters the audience is supposed to hate, then I definitely preferred Mark. And I still prefer Mark over Senator Pacchieri. Me and my homies hate Senator Pacchieri, but maybe that's a good thing.
I don't like your kind of thing. Don't you contact me again.
And lastly, family. There was one family murder in each of the films: Sonny in Godfather 1, R.I.P., and Fredo in Godfather 2. And while I love and miss Sonny, Fredo's death hit me a lot more emotionally, and I think overall one of the best storylines from Godfather 2 was the progression of Michael finding out that it was Fredo who betrayed him.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart.
In terms of marriage conflicts, while it was sad to see Kay and Michael fight in Godfather 2, I rather enjoyed the C-story between Connie and Carlo in Godfather 1 more. I thought it was interesting Carlo would be so intentionally abusive towards the daughter of such a powerful family, and then there was always Sonny who would stand up for her. In Godfather 2, no one really stood up for Kay, so I wasn't totally upset about her being shut out again. Now on more technical elements. I thought the directing was great in both. There were a lot of similar shots, like this tracking shot that focused on one subject, and this shot of business heads attending a meeting. I also loved a lot of Coppola's blocking choices in both films, and these shots in Godfather 2 that also displayed great levels stood out in particular. While I liked some of the costume choices in Godfather 2, like Fredo's plaid suit, Kay's black and white striped suit, and the green concierge outfits, I very much preferred it overall in Godfather 1, the standout being Carlos's orange suit. I thought the production design was great in both. In Godfather 1, I loved the Christmas decor, and in Godfather 2, these frames stood out in particular, like Michael's office, bedroom, and the wallpaper, and the exterior design during the Vito flashbacks were well done, like here when he travels through the food stands, and here at the parade. In terms of the mise-en-scène overall for large gatherings, I much preferred Connie's wedding in Godfather 1 over any Las Vegas show and whatever this show was in Godfather 2. And while I preferred the lighting/cinematography in Godfather 1, I felt like Godfather 2 was a little too dark. I can commend this one detail I picked up that was present in both of the films: underlighting characters who were kept in the dark, like Mrs. Corleone in the dark from Family Business, and Fredo in Godfather 2 kept in the dark as well. And finally, my tangential last point, I swear, what I also picked up in both of them was the symbolism of fishes. If you've watched my first review, I was astounded by the symbolism of Luca Brasi swimming with the fishes, not only because they said it verbatim,
Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes,
but also because of this particular shot which had two fishes painted on the place he ended up dying in, thus meaning fishes equate to the death of someone or something. Later in Godfather 1, Vito stares longingly at this fish tank, and in the same scene says that Michael is taking over as Don.
Michael is now head of
thus meaning the death of Vito's reign. And in Godfather 2, at the end, there's this fish tank that appears in the same scene as what we assume Kay leaving for good, thus meaning the death of their relationship. So what do we think? Feel free to start a discussion in the comments if you agreed or disagreed with any of my opinions. I'm sorry if you loved Godfather 2. I just can't get over how amazing Godfather 1 was, and I just feel like Godfather 2 was a bit of a letdown. Irregardless, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to hear any more of my very unpopular film opinions, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!